Hey guys, this is Crime Scene Analysis. I am Angie,
Jess.
And I'm Caroline.
and we are here to bring you all things episode 207 Face Value. The last of the Mohicans before the Dark Times.
We're back for 1 week.
Here.
And then
So this episode was written by L'Oreal Marger, who also wrote Pied a Terre and The Stranger Beside You. So some quality episodes there in season 1. And it was directed by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Lou Diamond Phillips.
Woo!
So much to say about the creative eye as well as the writing, but we'll come to that when we get there. So we open to a Criminal Minds fan's delight at Quantico in a very similar situation to what happens in the pilot of Criminal Minds. So I was like, oh, old school.
Yep.
At the 22nd mark, we find it is 2015. So 4 years prior to punching Tennessean sheriffs, Malcolm is indeed lecturing at the FBI headquarters.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna lie, it was giving me some serious professor vibes. And as a fellow teacher, I was like, oh, Professor Malcolm's a new thing I didn't know I needed in my life.
Yep.
I
And
enjoyed it a lot.
it was FBI Malcolm that they gave us teeny piece of.
You know, if I can't get him in a jacket shooting up people, I'll take him being a professor at Quantico, I suppose.
Yes. Yep.
So speaking of Quantico, Jess, give us a lowdown.
Yeah, so Quantico is a place, a word that probably a lot of us have heard if you're like me and you grew up on any kind of crime show, because it's especially crime shows that have to do with the federal government or DC, any of those federal entities. So I really quickly wanted to look up Quantico because we hear it so much. And actually I learned that Quantico, we know is in Virginia. It is an actual town.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was misreading this wrong, so I had to read it multiple times and look at some maps. So the town is actually 0.1 square mile, the town itself. It's a real town. It has just over 500 people in it, and it's about 35 miles from DC. So when we hear Quantico, it's not actually the town of Quantico, because everything that is that was listed that I saw that was there will not fit in this 0.1 square mile and have its residence. So the term Quantico actually expands geographically outside the actual town, and it consists of a ton of federal entities, including one of the largest U.S. Marine bases. I believe it was Marine. Yeah. And that Marine base has a whole ton of other things, but the more notable ones are the FBI Academy, Malcolm, that's why he's there, and their lab that they have. There's various officer schools, the DEA Academy, so Drug Enforcement Administration, and my favorite, the NCIS headquarters. And yes, NCIS is a real federal entity. It's the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, and I'm not going to lie, I really wanted to work for them at one point because we have a field office in Newport here in Rhode Island. Although it's kind of boring because it just deals with cyber crimes. But because we don't actually have a legitimate naval base here anymore. But yeah, so that's a little bit about Quantico.
Very nice. At the 48-second mark, I really love this line that he says while lecturing, which is, there's another type of killer, and for them, murder is an addiction, which is clearly referencing Ainsley with all the flashbacks and things like that. But this is the first time in the episode that we get Ainsley's theme. It's not even a minute in. And that theme now that I originally lost my mind over in episode 204, that I totally compared to Thor Ragnarok, because I love the little techno sound that it does. It weaves a ton throughout this episode. There are little 3-second snippets, here, there. And then by the end later, it's full-blown shenanigans. So that is the first time that we hear it, and it has officially, I guess, kind of come to fruition as an inverted theme of the Martin theme. So the first time we heard it in 204, it was kind of ooh, sort of reminiscent, but maybe not, but it's Ainsley, so we know it is. And by this point now, it's like if you were to mark the notes of Martin's theme or the We're the Same theme and mark hers, they almost like invert as you go, which is really cool. And a really pathetic reference, which Britt probably just cut this because this is really horrible. Being the mother of a 4-year-old, I see a lot of Paw Patrol, unfortunately.
Oh, I do too. You
Okay,
would not believe
so
how
you-
much old people love Paw Patrol. God.
Caroline's
Okay,
not
so
even
you
a
might
mother.
get this. You might get this. So there is a Paw Patrol theme, right? The do 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 do. Okay, but
I'm over here.
there
like,
is
okay.
the anti Paw Patrol, which is the Kitty Catastrophe crew,
Oh my
and
God.
their theme is do 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 do.
Fuck
do,
that.
do, do,
Oh
do.
my God.
They have the inverted theme, and again, this is the crap that I do. I'm praising Nathaniel Bloom in the evening, and in the daytime, I'm like, that's an inverted theme of the Paw Patrol. I wonder what that could possibly symbolize.
The Secret Life of Angie. There you go, guys. Now you hear it.
Oh
Now
my
you know
God,
what Angie does in her life
let's
after
write a
that.
tell-all about that. I don't think I'll get as much money as Jess would, that's for sure. But it's very similar to that, how it inverts but is similar, and I'm loving it. I'm loving that Martin's theme has like the powerful full string orchestra behind it that just grates on your nerves and sounds like a horror film, and hers is very new age techno, but it still has that epic sound. Like she's a threat.
Yeah.
She is a legitimate, probably equalish to Martin at this point, but we have kind of the old school meets the new school in the way that he writes it. At the 1 minute 10-second mark, watching this whole Ainsley blood reveal crap, knowing the ending now, just infuriates me. The level of straight face that she keeps during this whole thing while he is absolutely freaking out. And I will go into this later when kind of that full reveal hits, but she has hit the dark side, like full on drinking the Kool-Aid of the dark side. And I'm like, man, yeah, I get it. Like it works well to forward the plot, but at the same time, like Carol and I talked about in the one episode, like there are points and decisions that happen that there's no going back from. Like this is now a new plateau and we can't go back. And that this episode for Ainsley is absolutely a plateau that there is no coming back from.
And I think that it, like now the fact that we know the ending, I think it speaks to the fact that she is very believable and she is a very great actress in being able to pull this off, because without knowing the ending, she looks absolutely terrified. And Malcolm does too.
I'll be honest, that end reveal later, I was like, wait, what? This is the direction? Like, I was not expecting that. I thought, okay, who have we killed? I was speculating who the dead body was.
Yeah. I think everybody was, and rightfully so.
And in that moment, as we go into the title card, Nathaniel Bloom does this really awesome thing where he blends the We're the Same theme and the Techno Ainsley theme together as the title card pops up. And I secretly want to, I don't know, maybe I'll have Britt rip that music just for me so I can have that blended techno thing, because it's really cool. I want it. At the 4 minute 15-second mark, we are officially at our first crime scene with the victim. I love how they very strategically have the victim laid, like the chair is spun around, so it delays that reveal on Malcolm wanting to know, was this Ainsley, that much more.
Yes.
And this reveal, I just wrote, my notes just say holy balls. That's what my notes say. Like, I gotta be honest, for me, this might be, it's either this or Jerry's broken jawbone sticking out the side of his face. In terms of gruesome level 12, like it was probably the most gruesome. I just kept going, geez. Like, it was well done to makeup, props, whoever was involved with that. It is gloriously disgusting. And that's what you're looking for with that. So good for you. Thank you for the nightmares I will have in the future of that face. But you did a wonderful job and well done.
Yes. And so probably this is what I have been waiting. Has it been 2 weeks? It was like 2 weeks for this episode. Yeah. This is what I have been waiting 2 weeks for, because ever since we saw that first promo where Idrissa said she was Botox to death, I was like, because
You were so excited the other day in Discord.
I have-
and I was like, Caroline's awake, and you were like, I can't wait to tell you why I'm so excited.
I have never been more excited in my entire life. Well, no, I have. But oh my God. All right. So basically what happened here is botulism. So botulism is the condition that results from this toxin, which is called botulinum toxin, which is made into Botox. Basically what botulinum toxin is a toxin. It is technically, and as I found out in researching this, there was a research paper where it was called the most poisonous poison, which sounded like a first grade writing assignment, but I was like, all right, whatever. But it is actually true. It is considered the most poisonous poison known to humans. It is more poisonous than cobra venom. A lot of things that what I had said on Twitter, where I had asked people to fill half a coffee cup with fill half a cup with coffee beans. That is how much botulinum toxin it would take to wipe out the entire human race. And it is super interesting because it can either what it basically does is it stops your muscles from contracting. I could get super technical in it, but you guys would have no idea what I'm talking about, so I'm going to stop there. It makes your muscles stop contracting, which is why we like to use it for wrinkles, because the reason why you get wrinkles is because the muscles are contracting. But if you inject too much of it, if you eat too much of it, this is why we don't give honey to babies, because it can grow in honey, blah, 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 blah. What it causes is a descending paralysis, where it starts to affect all of your nerves in a downward direction. And then it can eventually lead to death. And this is why I have actually been, as a student, I was working with a patient who had botulism. And yeah, I got to work. I know two things that were going on in this episode as a result of being an SLP. Yet sadly, no SLPs were mentioned in any of the articles that I read, which was fine. It's fine. But in the case of our dead body, in all of my research, I have never seen it get to the point where like your face kind of like sloughs off the way that this I'm sorry for using that word, but that's what was happening. So yeah,
I had no idea that it worked like north to south essentially.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense. I mean, it does make sense, like gravity wise and stuff. Like, oh, okay, but that was just, me and my spare change get a lot of Botox.
It's an interesting.
No, and they're not really sure why that happens, because you can eat it and you would still get the descending paralysis, but that's one of the telltale signs that is how people distinguish it from something else, like Guillain-Barré, which is often a result of like a stomach bug or sometimes the flu vaccine. Rarely. That's an ascending paralysis. So it starts in your toes and it works its way up, whereas botulism is a descending. So that's when you're deciding what someone has, that's one of the telltale signs, is if they, you start with like a droopy eyelid, and then eventually you get dysphagia, which is my bread and butter, which is trouble swallowing, and then you start to slowly shut yourself down.
So at the 5:43 mark, we meet I'm assuming Milton. It's never said, but I'm calling her Milton because she doesn't seem to have a husband roaming around. And once again, Mr. Bloom with the music cues. I am absolutely in love with the jazz cue for multiple reasons. First of all, jazz is such a badass era of music. You can't not move to it. Like you could be sitting in bed under a weighted blanket and in Malcolm restraints, and your head will be doing this. Like you have to bounce to jazz. But the nice thing about it is that let me rephrase. There are a lot of symbolic elements to that as well, especially in light of the Milton family. So jazz is very much something that's kind of considered classic. It shows up at like classic dinner parties, things like that, things that the wealthy old money families like the Miltons would have had. It's also symbolic of the massive love affair with drinking and prohibition. Can't imagine what family likes to drink.
Oh, I don't know. True.
And it also it fits so nice with like the hustle and bustle she's causing all the servants in the household. Is everything about it, like there's symbolic levels, there's just catchy levels. The actual tune that it's playing is just, you know, like you just want to sit there and jam to it.
Yeah, I thought that was cool because I looked up and there were people moving around with music, and I was like, "This
That's
is
what I
different.
was gonna
This
say.
is really cool."
Yeah, it felt like people were almost moving to the beat with it. Like the franticness in the room fit the music so well.
Absolutely. And it was the first time I think we've seen more than like 1 or 2 servants. It's like, oh, okay, they have a crew.
They
like,
have a staff.
45 people
Yeah.
on staff. Yeah.
Yeah, not a, you know, 2 or 3 people doing stuff. So
Yeah, which makes me think, where did she pull all these people out of? Like, where was it, like Downton Abbey, where they're all downstairs in the basement? And she's like, "Get up here!"
She wouldn't go downstairs. She would just open the door and go, "Excuse me, help.
Yep.
Help, I need
Excuse
you.
me?
Excuse me, peasants.
oh my god.
Peasants to the first floor, peasants."
Oh my
Which,
goodness.
no disrespect to this actress, I think she played the part magnificently.
Yes.
She reminds me so much of freaking Cruella de Vil from the
Oh.
original, like Dalmatians. The way her cadence happens, the like, darling, like it was very much Cruella de Vil.
Was it the
and it was
coat
perfect.
too? The
But
furs?
you know what? I didn't even
Yeah.
think, but that had to be a subconscious trigger for
Yes.
me. Like poof.
Yes.
You know, somewhere a Muppet died for that coat. At the 7:02 mark, we meet our new character, Dr. Vivian Capshaw, played by the amazing and talented and cough cough Oscar-winning actress, Miss Catherine Zeta-Jones. Love her, have loved her for decades. She's amazing. I gotta be honest, even after the end of the episode, I still feel like there's some secret sketchiness going on with our Dr. Capshaw.
Yeah. We know too little about her at this point to really, like, what is the thing with the whole butterscotch stuff that they are constantly referencing? You know, are there
I don't know,
drugs
but
in
it's
there?
giving me the like Hunger Games Blood Rose vibes of like there's one thing that you always can't explain, and that
She's just got a like an odd affect to her that we're like definitely picking up on. Like, I don't know if it's just because maybe that position, like being a doctor in a prison, requires her to, or, you know, you got to be standoffish and not get close to them and, you know, keep them in line and whatnot, the inmates that are around.
I feel like maybe she requested him specifically.
Yeah, and I almost
definitely
wonder.
feel like that vibe was there.
Yeah,
I wonder if she did, because at first when he comes in, she says something like, "Oh, so this is the, like, you know, this is
infamous."
Yes, this is like Martin Whitley or something." And he's like, "Oh, it's Doctor," and she like has this simultaneous like she's fascinated by him, but she's also like, need to keep the 6 feet of distance between the two of us.
Knows how much of a narcissist he is, and is just like.
Yeah.
And even given the promo coming up, you know, where there's seems to be like a kiss moment, but of course could be edited to screw with our brains. But I thought originally my like joke, or maybe this is reality prediction, was like, okay, maybe she's like one of those fangirls that, you know, like to love Bundy and are totally obsessed and want to. I don't know if that's the thing, but I feel like she's sketchy. Like I feel like
definitely.
There's for sure some undertones or something going on there where I think she might help Martin do some dirty work or something.
Yep.
Love her, loved how she portrayed it. At 8:35, we have a great line from Gil that is, sometimes the most monstrous people are the ones hiding in plain sight.
Yep.
Well, I mean, neon sign, you know, like you might as well be on the strip in Vegas with that in terms of arrows pointing and bright lights.
Cough, bright lights.
him. I love that both time Bride's parents call him, he immediately assumes they know, and he's like, shit. What do you know? What's happening? How do you know this? What's going on?
Oh god.
And I absolutely love, and Britt and I totally nerded out about this on Discord with you guys, like the split screen editing of the phone calls between Jess and Ainsley, and then Danny's there and Bright's here, Really cool editing I enjoyed with the music that played under it, which is just panic attack music because he's trying to hold it all together.
Yep.
First of all, Danny is so on to the fact that something sketchy is
Something's
happening.
going.
She's watching him. We have another instance of like a little bigger version of the theme for Ainsley pops in while she's talking on the phone, which looking back, we know is happening because it's all a farce.
Yes.
She's completely like, oh, let's see, I'm already home making him miserable. Oh, I'll tell him I'm leaving. And then I'll do this to make him even more miserable. He only has 2 ulcers. Let's shoot for 3. Oh, and after that, we are on the street. And I love so much about this scene between him and Danny on the street. One, because they are at the point in their friendship that she just straight calls him out, like, you know, you really suck at pretending to have nothing wrong right now. Like, this is really pathetic. I just need you to talk to me. I love that it had like the sweet partner, you can confide in me vibe going on. And you can see, again, Tom's amazing performance of he wants so badly to just word vomit everything that's going on to essentially that's his best friend for sure. So he wants to just bleh and say every bit of it, and he always has to rein himself in, and it's getting more and more physically painful for him as he goes. You can see it in his performance that it hurts.
He's torn.
Even he doesn't.
And the super difficult thing about this too is that, you know, even if he kind of wanted to tell her about it without telling her about it, like if he wanted to like use like a whole bunch of euphemisms, he really couldn't, because Danny would definitely see through any of them.
Absolutely.
And especially after, my favorite line in this whole conversation is when Danny says, like, as someone who also was once lost, like that was just like, she is just hitting on that vulnerability with him, and I'm sure that definitely broke his heart, because she is referencing like one of her biggest secrets to him that he knows about her so far, and yet he cannot tell her his biggest secret to her so far right now. And that's just,
which is another thing. First of all, I love that callback, like you said, to the drug addiction, because we're also about to mention that later. So we need to bring that up a couple times to remind the fandom. Like 40 episodes ago, we talked about this one thing.
Yes.
But I also love that shit. I just lost my train of thought. Damn it.
Oh, Britt's getting a gold mine tonight.
I know. God bless her. Oh, well, she got the callback bite. We can move on. I have no idea what I was going to say. So at the 11:33 mark, we have the quote that's keeping some Brightwell folks alive. In this world, no one can feel good enough. And we're speaking about the world of plastic surgery. Even when they're as beautiful as you.
Caroline.
So first of all, I really love how Tom speaks this sentence, because there are multiple ways that you could emphasize words in this sentence that could completely change the feel of it. Like, he does not emphasize the you when he speaks. In fact, the you is almost like cut off. It's like the last word that trails off in his sentence. And I love that, because it really is him not realizing that he said this. Like, it just comes out, like, even when they're beautiful as you. Like, I saw a tweet somewhere where someone's like, the sky is blue, the grass is green, Danny's beautiful. Like, it was just facts that he spit out. And so it wasn't meant like as a direct come on, like, hey, as beautiful as you. You know, it was just literally like, oh, you're beautiful. And even someone that beautiful couldn't feel, you know, secure here. So I loved, and I'm sure that was something that both he thought of very much and was talked about deliberately, because that can change a lot how you say that sentence. So I love that performance. Aurora melts my heart into a puddle of goop every time I watch her reaction. The smile, the flatter, the like, oh my gosh, did he just say that? It is the cutest thing I've ever witnessed in the history of the world.
It's a multifaceted reaction as well. Like 3 different things, one right after another.
Yeah.
And I love that after he said it, he pulls a reverse of what happens in the episode Death's Door. He has walked and he thinks she's there. Like, he looks for her directly next to him, and she's not, and he turns and he's like, where'd you go? What's going on? Danny does the same thing in Death's Door, when they enter that convention, like the death convention, essentially, she's talking, he's dealing with thinking, you know, he's potentially killed his father, and she turns and he's not there and she has to find him. Like they are accustomed to assuming that that person will be right there. You know, and that doesn't have to be romantic. It can be, but that's just literally like, I'm with this person a lot. I know their habits, and he should be there and she should be there. That's where they are. They're always right there.
They're partners.
And it's just, I know. Carol's like,
Caroline's just melting in a puddle over there.
So melting.
and I love any type of comfort and like that level of intimacy on like a friendship base or like a companion based level is wonderful. Like you're there. You're supposed to be there. You're my right hand guy. You know, that's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's like the softest part of it for me. Like beyond like the whole being a Brightwell shipper, just it is a testament to the fact that they have bonded so well platonically that there is like not one without the other. And I also love how the show is showing us this now, where it's constantly like, it's not as much as I love the Danny, Bright, JT, like the trio. I also love how they're showing the two of them together because they are partners. They work very well together. Which is, you know, not to say that Bright and JT don't work well together, because they do, and they have a very interesting dynamic, which I love to see. But Malcolm and Danny are partners, and they pull that off very well. And so I also love how the show is showing us that.
And I did want to mention with this scene, we did have a quote from Chris Fedak at the C.S.A. Panel that they did, where he, you know, they're blatantly asked about the things that had occurred in 206. And he says, speaking about Malcolm's like subconscious and how he's feeling about Danny, he says that there's something there percolating, which I love that use of percolating, love it. Thinking about Danny in a relationship, even if he doesn't realize it. So now that he has seen that, and the level of intimacy that was there in his, you know, kind of dream, if you will, it's something that once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And now maybe he's, you know, looking differently at her or realizing that that has kind of been there. All I keep thinking of in my head is Beauty and the Beast, the Something There song. Like, there may be something there that wasn't there before. That's all I can think of is little teapots singing about, they know now, they're seeing it.
All I can think of is, like, what would Freud say to that? Like, exactly, all the way back to the trip. It's like, this little Freudian slip here was very interesting.
We're getting lots of trip callbacks in this one, so this was a nice episode for me.
So at 12:31, this was the first time that I noticed it, but when I went back, it was there the whole time, but I did not notice until we had good lighting at the Lexington Collective. There is distinctive marks on Bright's head for the entire episode, which is a callback to the fact that he fell. And this is like a day, maybe two afterwards. The way that this works, the way that the phone call happened when he was with Ainsley, blah, blah, blah. So it was nice. Like he has like this huge mark, like a red mark on his face, as a reference to, look, like we are actually following a linear timeline and it has not been that long. So he has marks, which I can sometimes, you know, it's a new episode, we just forget it happened, and look, he's a handsome fella, no big deal. But it was nice to track that and be like, it has not been that long. And since we didn't really get accurate aftercare for that whole situation, the least they could do is give us a bump on the head later. You know,
it's nice that they showed us that, like, bruises, you know, stay on any surface of your body for a little while. Now, what they need to do is for the next episode, they need to have them be yellow, but
yellowish. I don't know if we're gonna go that far.
No, I don't think so.
We're lucky we got
wishful
this.
thinking.
Be truthful. At 13:20, I really kind of appreciated this line that comes from the character Summer, where she's talking about Dr. Donahue and she says, you know, he's always checking up on me, if you know what I mean. And Danny's response is, unfortunately, I do. Which every female that watches this show went, yep. Because at some point, pretty much everyone has experienced that little extra attention from someone in the field that they aren't requesting or think they need to, for lack of a better term, you know, measure their dick in front of everybody to be like, listen, look at how great I am, and you're a handsome and good looking lady, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just, And I loved that. I'm sure Aurora was like, yeah, like she got to deliver that line of like, yep, know what that's like, just because we're bringing up those things now. Thank God. Like it is something that occurs. Let's talk about it. And let's let our badass female leads be like, yeah, that's some bullshit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yes. It was like 10 seconds and I didn't care because it was amazing.
Yes.
Which then immediately leads into the alpha males moment that
my
gave me
God.
like,
My God.
Just the fact that Malcolm.
Okay, listen. I am in. Lou Diamond Phillips is a good-looking fella, and to be older than me, he's a good-looking fella. I'm okay with that. But that glare from Gil,
Ooh.
like I full on had a moment. He was standing there glaring. I was like, okay, I see you.
Such
And
a
I
good
also
scene.
just love
Frank's growl voice when he does the bad cop.
Yes.
He always has like, come on, man. And he like gets, I'm like, yeah, get him, Frank, get him.
Yep.
He
Playing
does
bad cop.
alpha cop very well.
He does it
Does
very,
it very well.
well.
And not like necessarily comically, because you can get to like a 21 Jump Street level
Yes.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't, like he doesn't take it to a level, or that's like abusive and like, okay, calm down, killer, you're breaking the laws there, or anything like that. But he very much kind of throws his weight around in a way that is believable.
And not like I'm gonna be a jerk cop and go way overboard with this persona that I'm trying, to get information out of someone. So,
I'm not going to
which is
coerce
right
a
balance.
false confession out of you.
Yes, perfect
Right,
balance.
just by screaming and smacking a table
great.
and threatening to like throw him to the ground or something. Right?
Not overdone.
Yeah, it's more just like, come on, man, stop being a dick and just fess up.
Yeah,
for real. Tell us the stuff you know. Okay, so if I had a soapbox, I would get it out because I'm going to get on it for about 3 minutes. This is my deep dive today.
All right.
Okay, so
Okay,
in
this
my
is my
notes,
deep dive.
I literally wrote Adrisa, and then under it, I wrote Angie's rant.
Well, I appreciate your backup. I appreciate it. So here's my soapbox. First of all, I again want to say that while I do not romantically ship Adrisa with Malcolm, I love them together. They are the cutest nerd duo ever.
Yes.
I love and respect Keiko. She's a beast. And I love the character Adrisa. I love that we have given, a woman of color this powerful position because she's a freaking chief medical examiner in New York City. Badass bitch.
That's a common position.
Yeah, like I am not one of the people that like, because I ship Brightwell, I'm hating on, Adrisa, hating on Keiko. She should never be in a scene with Malcolm. No, absolutely not. That's not what my jam is. But I stop degrading our badass Asian female character with this behavior. And here's what I mean by that. Like, okay, cool. She's a little socially awkward. That's fine. Like, she doesn't have to be like little Susie, sex kitten and doing all that. Like, it's totally cool to be the nerd, nerd cute girl. Go for it. That's sweet. But like, this is taking it to a level to where her character, if you look back the past 3 to 4 episodes, she had one really cool moment where she helped him figure out the case with the etiquette school. But every other scene she's in is literally meant as pathetic, obsessive comic relief. And she is better than that. I don't want that for her character. She can, she can be in love with Malcolm. Cool. That's great. Like, that doesn't bother me. I get it. Me too. Like, it's okay. But like, they're making it for me to where if the Maldrisa ship ever happened, it's almost like watching like an obsessive teenager then date their idol. And it's like, that's not healthy. That's not a good situation. That's not. And again, I'm not looking at this from like she can't be with him. Like, okay, cool. If Maldrisa is endgame, at least make it believable and make her respectable in that position. She's a badass. And so it's just, I don't know, maybe like Keiko's totally cool with it and she loves the humor of it and it's great, but I feel like we're kind of underusing a very talented actress. And I know that her niche is comedy, like she's an improv gal and all that, but like she wasn't like this even by the end of season 1, where we knew she was hardcore head over heels for Malcolm. She was not acting this way. And I just don't want to detract. Like, how about we have scenes with her where she's telling us shit about the crime scene or figuring out something that she found in an autopsy, or, having those nerd moments of, did you know that, this guillotine wood was from blah, blah, blah. Like, let's give her the intellectual moments again, instead of like the puppy dog fawning over something. I feel like she's better than that.
Yeah.
If she wants to be in love with Malcolm, cool. And if Maldreese is in gay, whatever, like but at least make it to where she's on the same level with him, and it's less of an idol and obsessive and an equals. Because right now it's not. Like, she is just like it's borderline, she has a shrine to him in her closet kind of thing that you would see. And I don't want that for her. She's better than that in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
and they're not teenagers.
do right by Keiko. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Just do right by Keiko.
Yeah. And like you said, Jess, they're not teenagers. This is not like some campy teenage romance. Like, come on.
They're adult professionals.
Yeah. And you can tell that Malcolm's not like super into it either. Like, he is respectful as hell, but he's also like, she's a medical examiner. Damn it.
And there's been a lot of talk on the internet, like, okay, if you reverse these gender roles, I'm a little bit back and forth on that. Like, I do think that if this was a male character doing it, there would be this huge, like, oh, this poor guy, she's leading him on, blah, blah, blah. Like, I do think that there's a distinctive gender reversal there where it doesn't fit. But I'm also, again, we have a cast that is so diverse, and we have women in these powerful roles, and can we please not reduce them to a love story?
Yeah, don't reduce them.
Like, thankfully they're not doing that with Dani. They're allowing her to kind of carry herself and be, but let's let Keiko do it too. Let's let, Jess is doing it. Ainsley's doing it, even though it's the wrong way. she still gets to be this powerful, independent, I'm going to be me. Like, don't make the strong Asian actress like this funny sidekick. Like, let's make her on the level with everybody else.
Exactly. Even Dr. Capshaw, who we know nothing about, is already holding her own compared to Idrissa. Like, come on.
I know. And Idrissa's our gal. Like, Team Idrissa, let's go. Like, let's give our gal some stuff.
Yeah.
So soapbox over. I love the character. I am not like some of the other people that decide, okay, well, I'm on this ship, so I'm just going to shoot everybody else out of the water. But I'm just like, she deserves better. She had moments in the first season too where she was kicking A and taking names, and which apparently we get an opportunity soon, she said in that interview. So I'm hoping that this Idrissa centric episode helps right that ship a little bit of like, see, she is a professional with lots of degrees and an amazing, brain. She did look kind of cute in that dress, though, not gonna lie.
She looked adorable.
She was adorable.
Yes.
She was adorable AF, I'm not gonna lie. And props to the boots with the psycho heels I would die in and break my ankles. Good for you. Well done. At 17:39, I wrote, where do I sign up for the Dani Kicking Down Doors fan club? Is the office of president still available?
My God.
That's the best thing I've heard regarding this.
Can I be the vice president of the backup club with the hand on?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because somewhere Britt's editing this going, bitch, I'm the president. Back up. I'll kill you.
She's like, hop off.
You are the VP and you know it.
She was like, I claimed that the minute it happened. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was a funny outburst in Discord from all of us at that moment. That was priceless.
Love anytime we can get like a female cop in there doing that same stuff, which here's what I appreciate too. So like, JT's busting down doors that are locked and whatever, and that makes sense for his shape, his body type. I love that they still let her do that, but it was after the door was open.
Yes.
So it, like, honestly, it was believable, because I don't know that given Dani's size, she's gonna bust through a deadbolt.
Yeah.
But she can still do it. So I love that they left the door open and then she's like, bam, and she went for it. So it was believable. I like that.
Yeah. And the nice thing about the cool thing about it is the way they did it. It was like kind of like a mechanism that works. He shut the door and then she knocked on it again, and somehow the guy opened it, and so his momentum of opening the door also assisted her in just full on knocking him out with it.
It definitely worked that way. Yep.
Oh, and speaking of that scene, right before they get to opening the door, so the guy opens the door and pokes his head out covered in blood and rambles something in German. And Malcolm doesn't even flinch at that. He goes,
oh, German.
Sounds like German. And Danny was like, excuse me, all I saw was blood. So that was just really funny. You can look at it in, various ways, especially.
I also would like to know. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Especially going back to saying how he said that Danny was beautiful and it was just stated, as a fact, conscious flow of thought. His brain was focusing on the most confusing thing in that scene because he's used to blood and they were expecting blood. But the most confusing thing in that scene and thing that stood out of place was that the dude wasn't speaking English to them, and that caught his attention. So I just thought that was a really fun, really funny dichotomy to put in there for lines. You paid attention to what was coming out of his mouth instead of what was all over him.
This is where I want to sort of point out my neurodivergent t-shirt.
Yes, and I was trying to get to that, but I knew I wouldn't have said it in the right words, and so
no, because that was exactly what I focused on too. I thought that I didn't hear what he had said, so all I was focused on, I noticed the blood, but I was still just like, wait, what did he say? And then Danny's like, we have no time for this. There's blood on this dude's face mask, and I was like, oh yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's a perfect example of that.
How is this same dude consistently at the door 10 seconds after they knock when clearly the entire operation setup was up a flight of stairs around the corner? He was there, and also they knocked. They would never have heard that. Was he using the restroom, getting a drink? What was he doing I don't know. He was right by the door.
But also,
this is where I go. You guys are doing the logical thing, the blood. Malcolm's doing the, oh, hey, it's German. And I went, how did he answer the door so fast?
He's got logistics.
No, he probably went to pee, and then he opened the door, and then he went to shut it. And as he went to shut it, he was like, wait, are those cops? And then it's too late. Danny kicked the door down.
Oh, we've come too far. We've come too far.
Love it.
So I do want to say, when we meet this Francine character, I was impressed because I was unsure how far they were going to go with just the obsessive plastic surgery thing. And I think they went a nice route to not make it this circus sideshow thing, because it really is an issue where people get addicted to this ideal of perfection. Yeah. And instead of just making it look how hideous, it was clearly too much. And it was clearly whoa, but it wasn't so over the top that it was distracting from the actresses' scenes or things where you can still feel for the character and not be whoa, geez, look at that disfigured person. So props to makeup. I'm sure there were a lot of discussions there about how far is too far. The makeup department did a great job, because I looked up that actress.
Oh,
looks nothing like what you see. From what I can tell, everything from the eyebrows down is prosthetic on top of her face.
That's
cheekbones are much higher, the chin is out further, the lips obviously. And there was one little part where she's sitting there talking to them, and you can kind of see the crease in the prosthetic. Real quick, for just a minute. But it was so well done. It was very much a believable thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was nice to see that they sort of called attention to it without making her look like a freak show. Because
that's not meant to be funny.
Exactly.
It's meant to be look at this as a serious thing.
This is an actual addiction that people have.
Which was a nice kind of converse to the Jerry issues we had in the past, where it was about humor and haha, hee, look at this guy.
Yes, exactly. It wasn't she wasn't the butt of the joke anymore. Body dysmorphia is, as Malcolm points out, it's a real thing that people experience. So it was nice to not have her be this over exaggeration that people can mock.
Right. Yeah. All right, so it is time for our fan profile of the week, and we have another live guest with us. We have Liz. I love that we all did this in
too on cue,
unscripted.
Too on cue with no script. That was great.
It makes me very happy.
What we need is a secret handshake, a
yes.
And some way to do that over Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wish there was a way to know how everyone's Zoom screen looked, so you could pull the Brady Bunch.
Everybody's
looking
different.
one way and up and down, but it's never the same per person, which is frustrating.
I got to experience my master's graduation via Zoom.
Yep, me too.
Cool.
Me too, Liz.
Yes.
Yep. Congrats.
Yeah, you too.
She said taking an epic drink of wine.
Because I was drunk for the entire duration of it. Yes.
So, first of all, let's introduce yourself to the fandom. Who are you? How did you become part of the fandom? Let's go.
Okay, so I'm Liz Rector, and on Twitter, I'm Lavender Lizards, which is hilarious because my brain likes to forget how to spell lavender, which is really sad because I used to be an English teacher. And yeah, it's sad. And I live in Colorado, and I have an awesome cat and a dog, and I make a bunch of fan art for Prodigal Son, and I write fanfic for it as well. And you know, don't come after me with pitchforks, but I do have a tendency to struggle with finishing things a little bit.
Same.
Yeah. So I'll wake up to the occasional angry comment like, "Where is the update? I hate you." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And let's see, how did I get into the fandom? I like caught the first episode when it aired and was pretty much like hooked from the beginning. And started reading fanfic and you know, found other I just say peace on, but Prodigal Son people, and kind of dove right into the Twitter community, and I've made like a million memes and fan art since then. So yeah.
And for this, we are grateful.
Very, very.
Yay.
I certainly enjoy those morning after memes or the night of memes after the episode. It's fantastic.
I reached a new desperation like when I found myself like making a meme as the episode was happening, and I was like, "Whoa, you need to slow down."
I think Angie's done that a few times.
I've done that a couple times. I feel you on a like cellular level.
Right. And so when lockdown started, I kind of got into digital art. So I had prior to last March, I'd never done digital art, but I've been an artist for like 20 years. So I was like, I can translate, you know, the physical art that I've done into doing digital art. So I started doing that, and it was rough going at first, but it got better. But it's funny because my family is like, I swear to God, Liz, if you draw these characters one more time, and I'm like, I'm gonna keep drawing them. Like, there's nothing you can do. So my answer to them is that they can learn how to draw, and then they can draw whatever they want.
So speaking of art, not that I stalk your social media pages by any means, but you had an art show recently. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. So I live like south of Denver, so there's not like a whole lot happening where I live. But I go to this ceramics place called Arts on Fire, and I make a ton of ceramics. I did a bunch of ceramics in Houston, and I was in their like ceramic shows and stuff. And so I've spent a lot of time doing that. And the owner was like, "Hey, you have a bunch of great stuff. Like, I could put you and a couple of artists together and we can, you know, sell some of your stuff." So that went really well. It's good. It's tough, like selling art, like trying to figure out how to price things and like how to send things to people. Like I made this really big canvas piece and it was like gorgeous. And by the time I shipped it to the person, I lost $20. So yeah, you live and learn.
Rough.
Yeah.
So did you start writing in the fandom before you started doing art, or was it vice versa?
Good question. Yes. So it's been an interesting I'll just like sit down and start writing something, and it's interesting, like right before I go to sleep I try and like formulate the next chapter to a story. So if I've written a story and I'm kind of at a stumbling block, I'll like read the chapters I've done, and then I'll just kind of like let it stew and sit on it for a while, and it may take like a month to come up with the next chapter. So yeah, but kind of at the same time, I guess. The first thing I really got into writing a lot for was Smallville, and I've written like 500,000 words of fan fiction. So yeah, it's a lot. I probably should have finished my novel at some point. That would be productive, but yeah, fan fiction is more fun. So.
Fan fiction is so much more alluring, and they do so much of the work for you that it's very easy to like pick up on. Like the writing habit is so much easier once the characters and the setting for the most part is already established, and you're just like, whoop, like I'm gonna keep going.
Yes.
It's so nice that there's an established readership too.
Yes.
Like you're gonna get feedback at some point very quickly compared to just trying to throw your own novel out there and gain readers.
Definitely. And to try and like learn more, like my undergrad is in advertising, and like I was a copywriter for 5 years, and I was like a teacher for 5 years, and my master's degree is in publishing, so now I know all the secrets. Which is funny because one of my professors is like, that's not good, we don't want you to know how the meat is made, and I was like, too late, I'm here.
Too bad.
I just had like a Hamilton moment in my head. I couldn't help it. I was like doing the room where it happens in my head, like so it's really interesting that you said that thing about like when you're trying to go to sleep or something, that you think that's something that I have kind of done for a really long time, just to try to go to sleep. Like that's my version of counting sheep is let me think of a story and let me see what I can do, and then like so many days later I've carried it on, and then eventually I just started writing stuff down, or I have really creepy dreams, but that's a whole separate thing.
And I do the same thing, but then I never write it. So good for you for writing it.
It never translates into my dreams either, which is such a bummer. Like all of my dreams are such throwaways. I'm like, why can't I ever dream about like anything useful? I don't know, whatever.
Same here.
Meanwhile, I'm writing this like horrifically wumpy chapter, and I literally dreamed what I wrote last night.
Angie's dreams are quite interesting.
Shut up, Angela.
It's fun to drop. It's fun to drop in a Discord in the morning and find that every day.
You're not gonna guess what I dreamed. It was crazy.
I'm jealous. I want like a free trial into your dreams.
Okay, my brain is a terrifying scape. There's a whole lot of crazy going on up there.
I feel like every writer's and artist is to some extent. So
creative people have very vivid imaginations and thus very overactive brains at night, I think.
Okay, when I do have a dream and can remember it, which is not very often, I have no idea why I dream what I dream.
It doesn't help also that my mom has her master's in psychology, so I'm like, I dreamt this, and she's like, let's take that apart, and I'm like, no.
What would Freud say to that?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I lead an interesting life. So I'm an only child, so there's a lot of focus on me, and that's probably also why I got into art, because, you know, when you're alone a lot, like you read a lot, you play Xbox, you do things that you can do by yourself. So, yeah.
My child's future. Because he ain't getting a sibling. The previous discussion.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Smallville. Are there any other fandoms that you've been kind of involved in or have written for or done art for?
Yeah, Good Omens is another big one. I've got I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I've got my Good Omens shirt. I've made some like custom shoes for it, which are too nice to wear anywhere. And mostly like just Superman and Good Omens and Prodigal Son. And I do a lot of commissions. So like people come to me and they're like, hey, draw my dog, cat, my family, things like that. So that keeps me pretty busy. And then I just have like a million sketchbooks that I just do other sketches in, and a lot like people don't even see them. I don't even put them anywhere. So, you know, if there's a time when people are like, you're not doing anything, like I am, but it's just for me probably. So yeah,
you don't have to answer to anyone anyway.
That's true. That's super
but I
important.
have that personality where like someone's like tap and I'm like, oh my god, like can I help, like what did I do, you know? So
understandable.
Not healthy.
Caroline and I had this discussion just a couple days ago from like a writer's perspective of it's such a blessing. God bless everyone that like kudos and comments on anything that people write, because you all are angels. But sometimes I think it was her phrase where she said, sometimes it just feels like you're screaming into a void and no one cares. And it's like, well, good thing I wrote that because no one read it, you know? So it's, God bless those people.
That's
they're angels.
I always write too, like the things that I really want to read. Like I do it 98% for me and maybe like 2% for like everybody else. But
Yeah. I just call it selfish, well-deserved content for
Mhm.
myself. And I just
Mhm.
happen to post it. If other people like it, fine. If not,
Too bad.
fine.
exactly. Like if I want a Malcolm sandwich with Danny on one end and JT on the other, then I'm gonna write that, just for me. Just for
We
me.
are here for the content. We are here for the content.
Sorry, did I make it awkward? I should probably.
No. Okay, first of all, there is no awkward on C.S.A. Like if it's gonna get said, it's getting said.
Love it.
Yeah, this is a no shame zone.
No.
I really love the show because I can relate to Malcolm, and I've met other people who are in sort of a similar, everyone's experience is completely different. But yeah, it's kind of rough to deal with that, and it's interesting to see it like on a larger scale, see it on TV, and of course there are things that don't really match up with real life, like as any show. But like in my experience, I don't even know where to start, I guess, but I have anxiety and depression and PTSD, and it's just really rough. And sometimes some of the things that like people say are just like really off. Like I had someone one time say to me, like, what happened to you that could have been that traumatic? And like that's not the way to open up.
That's really a can of worms to say to any random person.
Cool.
Yeah.
It is. And so I just really appreciate the show for like showing that side. It shows like the way Malcolm copes with things. Like he takes medication, he does yoga, he has sunshine. But he also has a lot of the other things that other people struggle with, like self-destructive tendencies and obsessing, or like when you have something that you need that much, like he needs a case, like I need art, it can become really dangerous. So you become really reliant on that. And if for whatever reason that's not in your life anymore, you can really like fall apart. And it was interesting with COVID. I was like, how are they going to handle that? Like, because in real life, it's disrupted all our lives. It's made anxious people way more anxious. And so they've sort of touched on that. But it's like, it's a whole can of worms. You could go way down that road and make the whole thing, about that, which you don't want to do. So in all these interactions with Malcolm and Danny, you see he wants to like say something. He wants to like let her in, and you can't let her in because obvious reasons. And then it puts you in this sort of isolated state. And that's one of the things I relate to the most with the show is like, I feel really isolated. So anytime isolation's an issue, whether it's with Martin, like being locked up, or if it's with Malcolm and what he's dealing with, I can really relate to that because my anxiety got to the point where I had like stopped driving on my own. And so like when someone's with me in the car, I'm fine. But just on my own, for some reason, I've had a lot of issues with that. And I can't take the medication. Like everyone, like when you tell them these things, people are like, great, do this and this and this. And my body can't break down the medications, like can't break down SSRIs. So I have a lot of options that aren't available, I guess, to me. And I've experienced anxiety in these different ways, like in the workplace. And it's great to see like Malcolm's team is like there for him and they're supportive. And sometimes they give him like the weird eyeball, but sometimes in real life, it's not so smooth. Like your coworkers are just kind of like, what? And if you try to explain why you're anxious about something, they don't get it. And it's, yeah, so there's a lot of vulnerability in dealing with those things. I probably talked way too long.
First of all, no, there is no rule, so you're fine. But it really is something like if you don't experience that, like we don't need kind of, armchair quarterbacks telling you here's what you need to do. Like, how about you stay in your lane and I'll stay in mine and handle my own business.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And and all the stuff that's happening in the show, like with Ainsley, is like super traumatic, and it's just adding trauma onto his trauma. And it's interesting because I went on a date the other day, that was interesting. But I was kind of joking with my date that like you like kind of amass trauma and then you go to therapy and then you amass more trauma and you go to therapy again. You know, it's like, or you just stay in it the whole time. And this guy that I went on this date with, like, does not get it, has never been anxious like a day in his life. And so he was like, what is it like? Like, can you explain it to me? And I was like, okay, what are you like terrified of? And he was like, spiders, like dead serious, terrified of spiders. I was like, okay, well, this anxiety isn't just like kind of a worry or like a nervous, like when you have PTSD, it's like the spider's in you and you can't get away from it. You can't like separate from it. So, and he was like, oh shoot. And I was like, yeah, I probably ruined this date.
That's such a great analogy though. Like it really,
yeah.
that's such a great way to represent that. Like it's not even like, oh, you're in a room full of spiders. It's the spider is inside and you cannot get out of it.
Yeah.
That's a great analogy.
What is interesting about anxiety is I think it makes you extremely empathetic, extremely attuned to how other people are feeling about things, dealing with things. I mean, some of the strongest people are the people who have suffered from like depression, anxiety, these, because they have to like struggle every day just to like meet the bar, you know? So there is no normal, as my therapist likes to say. So.
There isn't. And that's another thing that I really like that the show represents is that, you know, society has all these different ideas, especially with mental health, like men don't need to go to therapy, or, you know, like men don't, you don't experience PTSD unless you were in a war or in a concentration camp or something. And this is an example where the trauma that he went through wasn't exactly, you know, it wasn't war. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't people's standard definition of what would cause trauma, but it was traumatic to him. And then he needs to go to therapy for it, and he deals with it in however many ways that he does. And that's just, it's just one more thing that I feel like everybody jumps to a connection with the show and to Malcolm for a bunch of different reasons. And that's okay, because it's always going to look different. And I'm glad that we have this different perspective. And even beyond Malcolm, all the other characters who have trauma.
The light probably is just best shown on my Twitter, because that has the link to my website. And I do have a Prodigal Son coloring book, which is awesome. It's like 40 pages.
Which we give out in our swag giveaways because it's amazing.
Yes. And I'm working on a second one, and I'm also working on a mental health workbook. So that's really exciting. And yeah, if you just go to my Twitter at Lavender Lizards, that's great. And I also have an Instagram, and that is at LizRect. So it's just LizRect. So yeah, wonderful. I guess there's another Liz Rector out there who already took the OR. So
there's always somebody.
There's always somebody, as long as they're, you know, nice. Let's go.
So speaking of upcoming art and things, you are hooking us up with a giveaway. So why don't you tell our listeners what exactly that entails?
Yeah, so as you know, I've made way too much art. So you can view all of my art. It's also on Pinterest. And the winner can sift through all my art and find the piece that they like the best, and I will get a print done for them and send it their way, an 8.5 by 11 print. It's on kind of like a glossy, little bit thicker cardstock. And yeah, just, it can be, you know, some line art, it can be some colored art, just anything that I've worked on. I recently finished Sunshine, so that was a nice, happy commission to do after doing like Malcolm and Martin like splitting apart gruesomely. So it was great to do a bird.
For Valentine.
Yeah, that's cool. I am also drawing this piece right now. I guess you get the exclusive. It's like Martin's head, but it's like upside down. And there's like bars, like it's a prison, and there's a cage, and Malcolm's in it. So
loving that exclusive. Thank you very much.
You heard it here first.
And I'm also, of course, drawing the Danny and Malcolm kiss. So
well, get fed.
I'm watercoloring it, so I've got it all drawn out, and now I just need to watercolor it. I'm really excited. I've also thought about doing like a digital take on it as well. So that's yeah.
Bless you, artist. Bless you. You keep us alive during 6-week hiatus.
Oh my gosh, that is a long time. That's
You
when the
wept
episode
openly.
ended. Oh, I was like ready to cry. I was like,
Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on, Liz. We appreciate you so much. You are a blessing to the fandom. Keep doing you.
You are.
And come back anytime. We're always here to chill out and laugh. And thank you so very much.
thank you for having me. You
Yeah,
guys are
thank
awesome.
you.
I love you.
Bye, Liz.
Bye.
So let's talk about diagnosing some headaches. I don't know. I've never seen someone go through this. You guys have a little bit more of a medical background than I do. A little bit more I mean completely. How do you feel about the performance of the extra there, the guest actor? Do we feel that that's a really logical performance for that?
Hold on, I'm really
Or no.
confused. What are we talking
The
about?
the guy that eventually gets drilled in the head.
The
we
guy who
first
was,
see him,
sitting there with the major
Yes.
headache.
and Martin is starting to diagnose that like before he passes out, and then later they do the drilling.
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I've never been in that scenario. I'm not in the medical field. I should ask Carrie. But like,
She's gonna watch this and be like, God,
I know she's gonna watch and be like, freaking Angie, I was here the whole time.
you didn't ask me about inhalers. You
I know.
You're about the debreather.
Is that really like the kind of just consistent, like, go, tell me, please, I'm ready.
So there is a quote unquote medical, non-medical term that we use called worst headache of your life, which is written in documentation as WH of
YL. Got you.
Took me a minute.
I love that that's a thing.
No, it is. Yeah, in a
I
medical
love it.
abbreviation for a lot of people who have strokes or brain aneurysms or in this guy's case, a subdermal hematoma, you would see on documentation. Like that's one of the first things that I look for is worst headache of your life.
Wow.
And for some people, it literally manifests as like you're holding your head and you're like groaning and growling and stuff, and you present to the emergency room like that. And that's when people are like, get this guy, like, get him into
CT
the emergency,
and
get a CT, get an MRI. Like there is no time for this.
wow.
And that was also sort of one of the things about eventually further down the line. I was like, this is New York City. There's not a helicopter pad on the top of this. Like this guy would be med flighted to a hospital.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were very much like, oh, well, the ambulance is 10 minutes out. You can't tell me it took less than 10 minutes to go upstairs, get the ultrasound, find the drill, sterilize if you bothered, given everything else. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that.
I'm like, this is Swiss cheese. This whole plot is Swiss cheese. There's a lot of holes. It depends on
everybody's like pain tolerance level and stuff like that, but you will sometimes see people who are like literally holding their heads and like groaning and grumbling and presenting as all of these different, exactly like it went on TV. So
I'm not around enough to know. So I was like, well, either this dude is like very authentic or it's really overacted. There's like no middle ground to this performance. So maybe it very well could have been. No offense, dude, you did a fine job. At 22:07, we were in the conference room and I noticed not one time in this episode when we're in the conference room are the lights on.
Yeah.
Which it was, the thing is, it was just kind of like a stylistic choice. It wasn't pitch black, but I mean, it was pretty average for, the lighting in a Prodigal Son scene. But what I noticed behind it, and I don't know if this was like a Lou Diamond Phillips thing or whatever, for the first time that we have police car lights in the background in the window.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first time that, first of all, it's been kind of dark frequently in the conference room, which fits with the, the things going on in Bright's life and this and that and the other symbolically. But it's such a tiny little detail, but we had flashing lights in the background. And I was like, for once, they're like, oh, look, police things happen outside. Like, it was such a tiny thing that you wouldn't think about, but I noticed it and I'm like, dude, we've never seen that before. It added some cool color, like full hue and everything, and it was nice. Good
Which
job,
is cool because we know that if I'm thinking of the right one, like from seeing pictures, behind the scenes pictures from season 1, and Lou saying some things like it looks real, obviously. Looks like you're looking outside, but that's a fake wall and the window is, light and film. So that was so
that is a fake. So they literally had to put like a tiny little flashing thing there to look like a car outside and down a level. Like the amount of effort it took. And there were things that I didn't get to talk about in the last episode too, that were like anytime Malcolm was having issues in that elevator scene, like the lights were flickering one by one down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were all these things, like our lighting department does some cool shit.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that it actually made me think of that I just realized this now is that way back when Malcolm's talking to Ainsley on the phone, she's staring out the window and talking about she's seeing police lights and she's hearing sirens, and Malcolm's like, this is New York City, you see that all the time. And yet Seriously. Here we see him again, in the conference room looking out the window at the police lights, and he's obviously thinking about Ainsley. And seeing all those lights and everything, and that he's miles away.
Oh yeah.
So I like that little connection.
Agreed. At 24:27, quite possibly the humorous line of the episode is Martin's "Put it on my tab."
Oh my.
Oh my goodness.
Like only Martin Whitley can talk about someone's life as though he was ordering a Cosmo at a bar. Like,
oh my god.
Which leads us to all sorts of operations and things that y'all can talk about, because the minute I saw the drill hit the back of the head, I tapped out. I went, nope. Nope. Out.
Okay, I have had wanted to rant about this since we saw the promo photos, because I'm sorry, we're doing improvised medicine here. Okay, so I get it. We're doing improvised medicine that I've seen in multiple medical dramas, especially like The Resident and House. It happens constantly. But who let them do this without his head in a vice? Sorry. Because I know is he completely unconscious at that point, or is he just a little out of it?
They gave him diazepam
they did give him something. Okay, so he's relaxed, but regardless, you never know what's gonna happen. And if you're dealing with someone's brain and skull, usually you lock it into a vice. So do
you want to tell them what a vice is, though? So that
so essentially it's like this cage around someone's head, and there's multiple contact points. I know 2 are in the head, and usually 2 are on the forehead, and some near the jaw, maybe. And it's essentially, it screws into your head so that your head doesn't move. They weren't wearing masks.
Yeah.
Martin wasn't even wearing eye protection. And I stopped and rewound really quick. I was like, is she even wearing gloves? Yes, she was, but she wasn't wearing a mask. And I'm sorry, COVID aside, you wear masks when you open anything on a person's body, for multiple reasons. We did see that before. We saw that in another episode where I believe it was the professionals, Malcolm and Vijay, ended up in the surgical suite during a brain operation, and they're not wearing masks.
Nope.
They did wear the head caps though, which I was very surprised by.
Head caps and the gowns.
We didn't want to get hair in there.
You did that to Malcolm's, to Tom's hair, really?
Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh!
At 28:25, I just, God damn it, Siri. Sorry. for some reason, my Siri's like, yes. I'm like, I'm not talking to you.
Say Siri.
It sounded like that whatsoever. At 28:25, I had to use Bon Jovi voice, and then I was like, shot through the heart. I had to. It made me so happy. So first of all, before we get into what I know you have some logistics about the stuff, the shots, camera wise, in this scene where Danny and Malcolm are trying to save they are gorgeous. By far, camera wise, my favorite scene of this entire episode. Particularly one of my favorite shots I think I've ever seen on the entire show is they do this. I don't know if it's I don't know what the camera's on, but they follow Malcolm as he knee slides under the table, and the camera is like right there with him. It's a really cool angle. I'm sure it was a PETA to shoot because you're trying to get under a table, this and that. Malcolm turns and is yelling for Danny, and you get this really cool low angle shot, which stereotypically is used for a hero, because when you film them from low, they look tall, they look big and imposing. And bless him, Tom's not usually like that. So I say this with all the love in the world for our lead, but he doesn't always get those moments. Later, when he's talking about like what could reverse it, what's the antidote, they shoot him from that same angle. Like it's very low looking up to give him the like, I'm the hero of the moment, I'm in control. But it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
The way they film it, I love it. I also love Tom's little behind the scenes thing that he talked about. I can't remember. Oh, it's TV Insider. I wrote it. It was a TV Insider interview, and he gave us a little behind the scenes clue about how they actually had to slide him a beaker that was half full of water or whatever, because he's like, IVs are or IV bags are incredibly hard to actually squeeze out of. So all in my head I could picture was just like 3 or 4 outtakes of him going and then Aurora just busts the gut laughing like, I can't be serious with this, what's happening?
Yeah,
I would love to know if like, I know those IV bags are probably pretty durable, but like if like they squeezed one the wrong way and managed to like get it to explode or something.
I hope there was some point where it's like just all over his face.
Hey, we need bloopers, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go, Fox. We need some
Let's do it.
bloopers.
God damn it, Siri! I said seriously. God. Which leads us into our literal cocktail. Like it was like Tom Cruise making cocktails behind the bar. And later with his like with his percentages he does later, like it was 60% of the time. It works every time. I'm like, what is happening? Okay, Caro. So let's talk. What do we got?
Yeah. Oh my God. So this whole scene, it was very, as you mentioned earlier, it was very Pulp Fiction-esque. Yeah. I'm sure that whoever has seen Pulp Fiction knows exactly what I'm talking about. If not, you probably know something related to it in some way. I love how Danny, of course, is like, well, what are we going to do to fix this? Because she just knows that Malcolm's got something up his sleeve. I don't know where what Wikipedia deep dives he goes into, but obviously he knows there's a cure, and she just knows that he knows.
At this point, she trusts him.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And so which of course he naturally has a cure, because what else does this man do with his free time other than obsess over himself in a case? But so he points out that, you know, he uses a whole bunch of different words, to which I'm like, damn, this show, they make it, I try really hard to nitpick this, but they do it in a way that I like technically can't. He points out that something about the neurotoxin is irreversible, which is true. So if you do happen to ingest or come into contact with C. botulinum and you get botulism, when they have an antitoxin for it that they can administer, but it cannot stop what is already coursing through your bloodstream. So if your face is paralyzed, if your swallowing and your breathing is affected, they can't reverse that. It's going to, this is why Botox works for like 3 to 4 weeks, is because whatever it binds to, it's going to relax those muscles. They're not going to contract. So it's too late for that. But he also points out that there's a paralytic agent that was involved, to which I'm like, well, yes, the toxin itself is paralytic, but whatever. You injected them with ketamine and
toxin,
well, no, not even like whoever, as we come to find out, our killer decided to do a 1-2 punch, and it's like, you obviously don't know what this toxin is, but fine. All right, whatever. You inject them with ketamine et al. All right, whatever. So he's like, we need to bring his heart rate back up. And so then he's like, cocaine. And it's like, of course.
As one does.
Oh boy.
What I think he was trying to make is something called dopamine hydrochloride, which is literally dopamine, which is what cocaine essentially acts on, and acetylene and lidocaine, which they did not have, which was very much not good. So yeah, so I think that
Malcolm said it was fine.
But Malcolm said it was fine. And Danny was like, no. And he was like, it's fine.
Sure?
This is our DIY HDTV. Let's just make it ourselves. Okay, worst cooking show ever. Literally. So yeah, so they just make up their own DIY dopamine hydrochloride. And then what is super interesting is, so if you got someone with botulism, when you're trying to reverse the effects of it, as they are, wherever the botulism is taking place, if it has gotten to the point where it's reached your respiratory muscles, you would not realize that someone's dying in front of you unless you had a pulse oximeter or like a finger clip. I wish I was going to bring mine home from work, but I forgot it because I had to use it today and I didn't clean it. The thing that they put on your finger that measures how much oxygen is in your body. You would not know otherwise. And so I was almost sort of hoping that Malcolm would like inject this solution into him, and then him and Danny are waiting. And I was sort of hoping that they would like make it accurate and be like, yeah, you're not going to be able to tell if you save this guy or not unless you had a pulse ox on him. But of course, then he, revives himself and he jumps back up. That is,
can't have that.
Yeah, no.
That's more for the audience,
Yeah.
honestly.
It was.
The viewer has no idea.
It was.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, the medical science side of me versus the drama side of
Yeah.
It's
It's like the same thing with the forensics. You can't make a show take weeks to get a DNA result. They need it back in the same episode. So
exactly. Yes, you had to do a whole pool splash of luminol for just a little sword or dare thing. Yeah.
And I did love that delay, because for once I actually thought like, oh, it's not going to work, because at some point that needs to happen.
Yes.
As much as that's a little bit of like a misconduct lawsuit or something, I guess. But like, I thought this was going to be the moment. And especially since they brought up, well, he was going to die anyway. Like they reminded us he was going to die anyway. This would be the moment for it not to work.
And then of course we get Danny's whole "I hate drugs."
Oh my gosh.
I do not miss drugs. Yeah.
Yeah. Which another callback to her, like, these are the days and the kind of stress that I do not miss.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I also love that Lou confirmed that like the whole, what I called the post-coital flop backwards on their parts. That's what it reminds me of every movie, any movie where you see two people and then they go, oh, and like, well, like that's what it was. I know that's not what they were doing, but that's what it reminded me of. That all of that was like completely improvised on set. Like they weren't sure how to end the scene or whatever. And so he just thought like, okay, they're both going to collapse from adrenaline and just be like, and then Malcolm goes all the way back. He's like, done.
I noticed in my rewatch, because like Danny kind of just drops back like onto her hands behind her. But then I when I rewatched it, I was like, oh wait, Malcolm just like fully like dropped on the floor. Yep.
3115 is my probably second favorite shot of the episode. It's this really pretty dolly shot that starts on the street and then turns into the restaurant where Birdie is sitting.
Yes.
Total props to Joy for catching that. From the time we see the dolly outside to the time we're facing Birdie inside, it is full on snowing. Mm-hmm. Like that is very different times that those two things were shot. So good thing they got the dolly shot. Yeah, good thing they got the dolly shot when they did. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely snowing after that. I love the trust but verify motto. I mean, like this is my motto. And I saw on some social media that that's a line that Michael Sheen says in a different show, but it's not Good Omens.
Oh.
It was some other show that he did, but he says like trust but verify. And so they're like, call back. And I should have really done better research, but I didn't.
It was the Twilight Saga. No, just kidding.
And she also has a control the narrative callback, which brings us back to 110 between Ainsley and Jessica as well. So there's a lot of little like first season nuggets popping in and out of this episode, which is nice. Also, I want to know, when do we get Grandma Milton?
Please.
Oh my goodness, the amount of tweets I saw.
Assuming they were dead. Like I was just assuming the grandparents were old and gone, and then we're talking about Mummy, and I'm like, whoa, let's bring her in. I want to see who's
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. Yeah. And like I feel like she has to be either Betty White or someone, and bring in Betty White with just a flask and like consistently drunk. but sassy. This is who Grandma Milton needs to be. Team Grandma Milton. I want that shirt. Team Grandma Milton.
All right.
I want to see Jackie and I want to
I'll
see
get you
Grandma
on that.
Milton.
Yes, give us Jackie content, please.
Please. Oh my goodness.
At 3440, I absolutely adore the fact that Danny acknowledges we still need a warrant, even though the door is unlocked. To which our chaotic boy went, I'm just a civilian. And then
Yeah, he was like, well, I don't need one.
I'm not official member of the NYPD, suckers. And he tries to open through, which one of the things that my husband said is like, this is why he's not officially on the NYPD, so they can skirt around all the stuff. Yes, he doesn't have a gun, but they make up for it by allowing him to not get busted for half the things the police would get busted for. I have to say this for Carrie, and because once she pointed it out, I could never unsee it. At 35 or 39, when Francine is describing Summer and Malcolm only realizes who it is after she describes her breasts.
Yep. He's got like no, like he's just looking at her
she's
like,
you know, 100,
and you see
110 pounds, 5 whatever, brown hair, teardrop seas. Summer.
Yeah,
like,
and
who it was.
And it wasn't like he was just waiting for her to finish her sentence. There was
he had no idea.
it was, you could see it in his eyes.
light bulb.
The light bulb went off once she said that. And I just once I saw Carrie say that, I was like, oh my goodness, wow, okay.
Like, absolutely phenomenal.
Do you pay that much attention to boobs, Malcolm? And if so, what's Danny's bra size? Do you know?
Guarantee you he knows. Guarantee you he knows in his head already. He's just nice enough not to bring it up.
Not yet. Someday he's gonna let it slide.
Just place harassment.
Yeah, that's what'll happen too. He's already called her beautiful, and then they'll go into a mall and be like, "Oh, that was your size, right?" And just keep going. Like nothing happens whatsoever. And she goes, "What?" At 37:29, we are upstairs. We have revealed that Summer is actually Lana, and she's kind of holding Donahue hostage up there. I absolutely adore. First of all, I hated but loved the makeup there. Creepy, delightful, lip missing. Wonderfully done, but yuck. But there is this really awesome shot, again, Lou Diamond Phillips, you genius, where you see the disfigured part of his face, but then the magnifier is specifically on his eye. So you see like this really close-up eye, and then all the aftermath of what Lana has already done, and you get just the horrific gore meets the actual just sheer terror of his eyes close up. The actor does a great job of like silently delivering this, but it's a really neat shot. And the first time I watched it, during that shot, I just went, "Oh, gee," because it was like, a close up of the lip and the blood. And but then rewatching for this, I was like, okay, this is actually a genius shot to show what's happened versus what he's feeling. And it was really cool shot. A little creepy, but very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so my favorite movie in the history of time is The Princess Bride. Okay. If you've never seen it, that's fine. But all I could think of as Malcolm is telling Lana to let him live disfigured like a monster, all this is the To the Pain scene from The Princess Bride. Have you guys seen this movie?
Yes. I just don't know what.
So there's this whole scene where he's laying in the bed. He's laying in the bed and he tells the prince Humperdinck, like, "I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to take your face. I'm going to take your nose, then your ears, then your lips, then your eyes. And you're going to be forced to live and hear every child shriek at your existence." And blah, blah, blah. It's this whole thing of, I'm going to mutilate you and then I'm going to make you live with it.
Live with it.
And the way he describes, like, let him live like a monster, blah, blah. It was literally that scene in my head where he was like, "I won't kill you, but I'll let you live with your horrible disfigurement, blah, blah, blah." And so in my head, I was just like, "Oh, it's The Princess Bride." Good reference.
You can make me watch it the next time I'm up there with you, Caroline.
Yeah, that is an original sin.
Film.
Our next wine night.
Yes. Okay, so we have a minor little middle scene here where we have Dr. Capshaw dropping the butterscotch love. That sounds really inappropriate.
Yeah.
Not a euphemism there. Okay.
I didn't realize it until I said it. But dropping the butterscotch love sounds like
things that sounded better in your head.
That really sounds way different than what I meant for it to be. She gives him a piece of butterscotch. which shows us a couple things. So first of all, she deliberately says a couple times, like she flexes her status to him, like they said you were going to do this, they said you were going to butter me up, I'm in control, you're not. You know, she was very much, this is my house. But then later she steps over the line and is like, I'm in your space, so now we're close enough to touch, and then let me give you this little hard candy treat. Which is what's leading me to believe that there's clearly a little bit of flirtation or something going on there. And that's what the edit, at least for the promo, looked like. But I still, something like, I can see this like a femme fatale where she's like, let me butter this guy up and then I'm really secretly here to do him in. Or I could see this
kind of
as
the vibe
let's pair
right
up
now.
and be Batman and Robin. Like, I can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways.
So at 39:55, we come into this kind of final reveal moment between Malcolm and Ainsley. We find out that it was not indeed an actual murder, that it was pig's blood. It was a prank the whole time. Again, like, I did not, of all the outcomes for this, Ainsley pranking him was not even on my radar. So well done, writers, because I did not peg that for any moment. I have a couple things I want to hit before I let Kara go crazy with it. I love how Ainsley walks through those double doors exactly the way Endicott walked through those double doors in Scheherazade. At the end of Scheherazade, when they realize, like, oh, Endicott, blah, 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 he like walks through these doors to see Jess, and it's just dun, 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 like the way they angle him, and she does this full-on strut through the doors, like, have you figured it out? Like, and she is becoming the person that started this whole thing for her. And I just wrote Ainsley looking evil AF. That's what I wrote in my notes. And then also just Tom's performance in this scene is, there's something about when this man yells, the way his yells are like, they crack when he yells. There's nothing he can do about it. It's just his voice, but it hits so much harder, especially in a moment like this that's so emotional and that's so, and he has, you know, Carol can get into this, her discussion about certain parts here, but he really has given up so much in the name of trying to keep this under wraps and making sure nobody's going to jail for it, this and that and the other. And not just like his physical, he could go to jail, he could be, you know, implicated in all of this stuff. Like, he's given up his found family because now he's lying to all of them. He's given up sanity and God knows what else. But I think the thing that might be motivating that yell the most is the fact that, like, his relationship with, like, Gil and Danny it's forever changed. And that's all in the name of him attempting to try to fix this situation and all of that. And that was really rough. And Carol can kind of dig into that some more.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, Jess, actually, I want to hand this off to your thoughts first, because I think that I have sort of a very different perspective.
Yeah, we definitely have different perspectives, and not necessarily entirely opposing ones, but just looking at them from two completely different places too.
But I want to hand that off to you first, so you go.
So yeah, watching this scene was absolutely, first of all, breathtaking in terms of how it was done so well. And like Angie said, his voice cracking, it was controlled, but just devastating. And that's probably what made it more devastating. Yes, both of them. Halston and Tom's
lack of emotion.
Yes.
Or just like, you shouldn't have lied to me. Like, full on, no acknowledgement of the effects it has taken, no empathy. Like, I think we have fully reached sociopath mode. Like, I don't know that we're saying on the spectrum anymore. It's like she's in the middle of the damn target.
Yeah,
at this point.
And so I rewatched this scene a few times, despite how like heartbreaking it was to watch Malcolm go through this. But one of the things that hit me, and I don't want to say it kind of triggered me, it didn't cause a problem for me, but it did, I don't know, get me thinking. I've been in the middle of this type of situation. A lot of people were throwing around the word like gaslighting, and actually Ainsley says that and things like that. You know, the screaming, the manipulation, the
Mhm.
him eventually apologizing. So when I say I've been in that position before, I don't mean I've been in the middle of anybody having been murdered and being a part of it, but I've been in manipulative relationships, and to be in a relationship like that, you don't see it going on.
Mhm.
And then to watch this from the outside, it was just like, but stop, no, like, so it was just really frustrating. And especially the getting him to turn around after he broke down and apologize, because I've been forced into that corner many times, and it happens. It just,
And such a Martin move.
it's, yes, that too.
Because he does the same thing in season 1 when an Eye of the Needle, when he was like, well, you're the one that started all this because you called the cops. Like, nah, bitch, you murdered 23 people and you tried to chloroform me. Don't make me apologize for this. Look, Ames, like, some stuff went down and you didn't get told right away, but at the same time, none of that was in like a nefarious, muhahaha, I'm gonna control you like a puppet. Like, he was just trying to keep everybody's asses out of jail. Like, look, like, and it, like, to make someone apologize for something, that's, I see what you're saying. It's frustrating.
Manipulators are great at getting someone to apologize for something that they did that hurt them, but the thing that hurt the manipulator was a reaction to the manipulator doing something completely wrong.
Exactly, because ain't none of this going down if you don't go full on Laurie Strode on Endicott's ass.
Yeah, that leads me to Caroline's different perspective.
Okay, and so this is where I want to sort of like put a little disclaimer. Please do not come for me. I swear to God. I mean,
we're being objective.
I really have to. Yes, I really have to be objective, and I don't want to seem like I'm playing devil's advocate, but I sort of saw this from the perspective of, like, yes, feeling incredibly bad for Malcolm, especially because I feel like this is one of the first scenes where, like, as Malcolm's talking, it sounds like he's literally crying. Which I think is what broke me more than anything. It sounds like he's literally breaking down. And I don't know if we've really seen that so far on this show. We have seen Tom do all sorts of complete breakdowns and falling apart, but this was something else entirely. I just want to point out that in some ways Ainsley is actually right. He actually was kind of gaslighting her. And yes, we can talk about how this compares to Martin. Martin was killing people deliberately, though, and like intentionally, at least as far as we know. We don't know if this started out with a whole blackout thing and then he just was like, oh, well, I guess I really like this.
I love this. This is the best.
Yes,
this is some nice serotonin.
But at least as far as we know, what happened with Ainsley was just a complete blackout moment. Which Malcolm witnessed and then took it and gaslighted her. The definition of gaslighting, at least as far as Wikipedia and stuff is concerned, is it is taking someone's memories and thoughts and feelings and manipulating them. And that is exactly what happened. Ainsley killed somebody. Malcolm manipulated her memories and said, I did this. And then when she was starting to remember things again, he kept saying, like, oh, you're just in like this, you're processing trauma, you're doing this and you're doing that, which is kind of true, but also he was manipulating her reality. And I don't want to downplay the fact that that must have been very upsetting for Ainsley as well. But I also understand that from Malcolm's perspective, he has given up everything and he has sacrificed so much, and as Angie said, his bond with Danny and Gil is irreversibly changed now. And that is devastating. This is another big turning point. We are not going to be able to come back from this, period, no matter what. But it also made me just think that this is, especially when Ainsley points out, like, she says something to Malcolm, like, you sound just like Dad or something. It just reminded me, like, we need to remember that the both of them are children of the same parents, and Martin and Jessica have dealt with Martin's proclivities and subsequent arrest in very interesting ways, and that they are the byproduct of the environment and the personalities of the people who raised them. And so Malcolm did a bad thing, Ainsley did a bad thing. We obviously have to consider a whole bunch of other stuff from Ainsley's perspective. Is this sociopathy?
I feel like the prank, however, is the part of this that really
takes
it
like
okay.
Yes.
Because I get that, like, okay, yeah, they lied and all that, and that that would be very frustrating and learn, but to take it to that level is the part where I'm really thinking like the sociopathy is starting to run, because any person would understand that is a level too far.
Yes.
That no matter what has happened, you want to yell, you want to scream, you want to end a relationship with somebody. Fair argument. You're doing what dad would do. But that is the one thing in this whole scenario. And her just, well, yeah, you lied.
Yeah.
Like there is no computing the absolute bombasticness of what she has done. That for me tells me that she's like past a point of no return. And that final moment where she has that great line of like, we're Whitleys, we, this murder thing is kind of our deal. Like that flips the full-blown Ainsley theme. Like it's epic and loud as she like turns around, snaps and leaves essentially. And just Malcolm's face of like, shit.
Yes.
Like he knows now. We talked about this. We talked about when you're involved in a crime with multiple people, all it takes is one person to go cuckoo, and then that there is no safety net anymore whatsoever. And so Malcolm fully knows at this point that she is an absolute loose cannon. There is no guarantee about anything she's going to do, say, whatever. And that puts her, him, Jessica, like everybody now is in serious hot water. Like this can go one of 1,000 different ways. Which is so terrifying, knowing that this new character, Simon, is now headed their way. Like she's a full-on loose cannon with Europol en route to NYC. And from previews, I mean, he's got photos of the Whitleys. Like
he has a good idea of who did this.
In mind.
Yes.
And that's what's so scary, because when you have that kind of lack of social setting understanding and empathy like she's cracking jokes at the dinner table that anyone at half a brain could have been like, ooh, what does that mean? So now does that mean the next time she's around Simon or something, like there's going to be a comment made and she goes and like says something that's incredibly incriminating, like, no, that's not the joke to make right now, Ainsley. You can't be saying things like that right now. And we know that she interviews him as a reporter and things like that. So I'm really intrigued as to how they play that. I'm also super freaking excited that we have Alan coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Catherine Zeta-Jones, but I got to be truthful, my own personal wheelhouse, I was so excited when we found him out. He is a Broadway icon, which this is the Broadway year, apparently. We're just going to everybody. Is Aaron Tveit busy? Because I would really love to have him on the show. Please.
Can we get Angie Manuel Miranda?
Yes. Can we get Lynn, Chris Jackson? If where's Philippa Sue when you need her?
Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome. He's a Broadway icon. He's an LGBTQ icon. He is 0 F's given, and I love the man. Like he absolutely will do and say whatever the hell he pleases and does not care, and I love it. I'm really excited to what he's going to bring. You can already tell even in that small scene that he's given this guy a little bit of flair. Like he's like, I'm Simon Hux. Like he's got like that whole I'm headed to New York City.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could just watch them film this with him. He must be a riot
first of all,
on
and
set.
I'm loving like what was it, a snap or a Instagram video where him and another actress are singing.
Yes.
Like, oh, this is the content I need.
That was
Bring
amazing. So good.
So I'm super stoked. We're not necessarily going to go into the extended preview just yet because we've got some weeks to fill some bonus content for y'all. So we are going to have some bonus content episodes throughout. They're not going to be full length, but we're not going to just go radio silent for the next 6 weeks. But yeah, that's got to survive us till April 13th, folks.
Come on, fandom. We can
down the
do it. We can
do what Liz said. Write a lot of fandom. Do your part to help keep us going. Write a lot of fandom. Write a lot of fandom.
Write a lot of fandom with it. I'm not sure.
It didn't sound right, but I didn't even catch it.
My brain is a scary place. Don't forget that we do have Liz's giveaway where you can get a free print of anything that she has done. We're going to post the entry tweet on Twitter, and all you have to do is retweet it. And that is your entry. And that is going to go same time, even though there's no episode next week. That will be until 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday. And then we will announce a winner after that. So make sure you retweet. And in the meantime, we'll see you around. Catch you on the flip side, guys.